And to make it more responsive and separate, yeah. I wonder if Patricia Scotland, Secretary-General of the Commonwealth, sitting next to you, would like to make a comment just on, is there a recession, and briefly why, and what we can do.
Well, I think I really agree with what Graça Machel said about substance. But I think there is also an opportunity now for us to build that substance. If I can just talk for a minute about the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth, as you all know, has 6 regions, 52 countries. 18 of them are in the Africa. But if you look at the human index, Human Development Index, you'll notice that all the Commonwealth countries are at the top. Why is that? It's because of the rule of law. It's because of our values, because we can make a difference. So I think Graça is right to say, question the recession, because were we ever there? But I think we need to be very optimistic that we can be there if we choose. Because we do have the basis to recraft, using good governance, using the rule of law, a new framework. And I'm absolutely committed to doing that with leaders right the way across the Commonwealth, but particularly leaders in Africa. I think we can do this, but we all have to choose.
Thank you. If you would pass the microphone to Akere, who's from Cameroon, because Professor Batili raised, and we know about the tensions between Anglophone and Francophone Cameroonians in a certain part of it, which is creating a lot of worry. Maybe you'd like to give a comment.
Well, thank you very much. There is a problem of management of diversity, as the Professor just said. And I'm from Cameroon, that's correct. Most of you know of my country through football. We just won the African Cup. We got $4 million. And 2 weeks afterwards, we were thrown out of a hotel in Belgium for not being able to pay for breakfast. So, so that's delivery for you. But seriously, in Cameroon, there's a minority of English-speaking Cameroonians. I'm one of those. I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 40 years, trained in England, so I'm an Anglophone. But I've been practicing law for 40 years in the Francophone part of Cameroon. And sometimes last year, some Anglophone lawyers and teachers, they went on strike because of the supposed marginalization of Anglophones. And the slowness of the state to respond to this is slowly evolving into a federal or a movement for secession. And really, I've listened to the analysis, which we always have in these meetings, is what went wrong. My problem is not that. My problem is whether. Yeah. What do we do in a country where the state capture? Total state capture. And as the professor said, when there is state capture, the parliament is loaded, the civil service is loaded, the courts are loaded. So where do you go? How do you really make things change? And that is the seriousness of the problem we have in Cameroon. I am speaking here, I wrote an article about the inevitable nature of change. I was hauled into the gendarme office, interviewed by 5 colonels and what have you. But being a lawyer, there were 200 lawyers outside banging on the door. That probably got me out. But I'm saying, as we speak, there were 100 Anglophones locked up. Our office is doing about 80 cases pro bono. And it's a serious problem. And it's supposedly going under the radar. And I think we must have a system that permits the world to see and people to speak about these problems. Internet in the Anglophone part has been knocked off for 2 months. And that is happening in a world in which we're having this healthy discourse about democracy. Something must give. And the institutions we have in the world have to have a system where they can preempt. Because what's going to happen in Cameroon is that you're going to have some fanatic killed 4 Francophones or 3, and then there's retaliation, and we are done.
It's very, very worrying.
It's a worrying
situation. And with President Paul Biya has been in power for what, 34 years?
34 years if you want to be modest, but he's been in the presidency since 1962, so you can add up. So it is a serious situation. So the question is whether, after state capture, how do you get out of that?
Thank you very much, Akere. Just to get a sense of the mood in the room, just put your hands up if you think there is a democratic recession in Africa. Put your hands up. Yeah, I'll come to questions there. Who thinks there is not a democratic recession in Africa? Well, that's quite a lot of don't knows. Who abstained? Wake up, everybody. Who abstained?
Yeah. It's a deficit, not a recession.
A deficit, not a recession.